Are you guys all good? Jeremy, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start the presentation. Okay, so I'll just start now. Okay, so we are Team Delta. I'm Kelly Roth with Jeremy and Beth. Okay, we broke up the book kind of by sections and we each read a section of it. Our presentation would be it being presented to a staff who would be interested in having this book for something like a staff development, or they're wanting to become a multiplier school in that. So Beth read the first 3 chapters. So I have her infographic pulled up here. We have infographics for each of our sections that we read, that each one of us will explain. So Beth, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and start.
All right. So yes, like Kelly said, I read the first 3 chapters. And so I will just dive in. The first chapter was just kind of an overview of what a multiplier was and what the multiplier effect was. And so it starts off with the 5 disciplines of a multiplier. And very basically, you just want to attract and optimize talent, create intensity that requires best thinking, extend challenges, build community decisions, install ownership and accountability. And then the opposite of a multiplier is a diminisher, and then you'll hear about the diminishers throughout all of the chapters. So at the very beginning, it gives you a quiz. The book does. It gives you a quiz about, so you take this quiz and you answer all these questions, and it tells you like if you're an accidental diminisher or if you're a diminisher, things like that. So I know when I took it, I was a borderline accidental diminisher, so very close to, just becoming an accidental diminisher. So it was more so than what I had expected. So it was an interesting find. So then we moved on to chapter 2, where there's 3 practices of a talent finder. So you want to scout out diverse intelligences, find people's native genius, and then optimize people at their utilize people at their fullest. And then practices of diminishers. You don't want to put people in boxes or maintain the status quo. And you don't want to protect people and control resources. And when it says protect people, you don't want to, it's not like in a good way. You want to protect people from going out and exploring and finding themselves and stuff like that. So it's more of a protection in a negative sense. Then chapter 3 is the liberator. 3 practices of a talent finder. So then those are offer choice and space for others to contribute, demand people's best work, generate rapid learning goals. And then you have the diminisher's approach to the work environment. And that's diminisher would dominate the workspace, create anxiety, and judge others. And then throughout the chapters, you will see the multiplier mindset. And the ones that I picked out were people are smart, intelligence is dynamic, curiosity sparks intelligence. And then throughout the chapters, there are multiplier experiments. And so they all have names. And they're like little worksheets and stuff like that you can go through. So there was name the genius, supersize it, play fewer chips, make space for mistakes, and then talk up your mistakes. So they're all exercises on how to become a multiplier instead of an accidental diminisher. The favorite one that I saw was play fewer chips. And that's kind of like just take your hands out of it. If you're working in a group, you want to let everyone else get their say. Everybody has a voice. Don't dominate it. So, keep out of the decisions and keep your voice out of it as much as possible as the leader. So that's what I got out of the first 3 chapters.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to switch over to Jeremy's infographic. Make it a little bigger here. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Actually, let's do it. There we go. Also not what I wanted to do. There we go. All right, so Jeremy, whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right. So I did chapters 4, 5, and 6, and then I broke them down into the 4 sections of what a diminisher is for that section, and what the multiplier would be, and how to the practices, as well as how to become that kind of multiplier. So chapter 4 is the challenger, and the diminisher in this instant is the know-it-all. And a know-it-all limits the organization to achieve only what they themselves can achieve, because they assume their job is to know the most and tell their subordinates what to do. They also believe that they are the experts in the organization, and that the organization is a means of putting their ideas into place. So then from there, the challengers are the multipliers, and they are people who set a new course for an organization. They do this by provoking thought, guiding, and laying down challenges. Challengers believe people grow through challenge and want to be stretched. They also believe there is a difference between giving more work and more challenging work. So the challenger practices are ask provocative questions to guide discovery. And that is just basically asking questions that provoke new thinking. Also, laying down a challenge, which is posing vivid, concrete challenges that extend beyond its reach, filling the void. And the third one is generate belief in what is possible. And that is just creating a belief that challenges can be overcome, causing people to lean in and take the exploratory step. Becoming a challenger, there were a couple different experiments here, and the one was the extreme questions experiment, and that's basically only talking in questions. No matter what you go in, you don't say any statements, you just ask questions. And then the other one is challenging the status quo, and that means that you're trying to improve everything. And becoming a challenger means learning how to stretch your organization without breaking them, knowing when to pull back. So then we'll move on to chapter 5, which is the community builder. And the diminisher here is the decision makers. And decision makers work with small groups and keep the collective group in the dark. Only their options matter. Other opinions are not as good. Community builders, on the other hand, create transparency by holding discussion or debate about the decisions that need to be made. They bring people together through robust decisions. They do know that not everything needs to have a debate, but there's a big decision. It is critical. The 3 practices of a community builder are frame the issue, which means establish what is in bounds and what is out of bounds. Ask the what, who, how, and why questions. 2 is spark a debate, create safety, make it worthwhile, and demand rigor. And 3 is drive a transparent decision, meaning communicate the process, hold open forums, and give people time to weigh in. And then on becoming a community builder, lead debates using the three asks: ask a question, ask for evidence, and ask everyone. And then there's the make a debate experiment, which is the use of the make a debate experiment is build a collective intelligence by identifying an important decision and frame the issue to your team. Ask them to prepare with data and opening position, then spark the debate. Moving on to chapter 6, that is the investor. And the diminisher here is the micromanagers. Micromanagers give commands and jump in to get results. They usually get the job done, but create a leader-dependent organization. They often infer results, and they believe that their team will not figure it out without them. Investors are the multiplier. Investors define expectations up front. They shift the burden of accountability onto others. Investors believe people perform best when they have natural responsibility and know someone is counting on them. investor practices, give others ownership. So put other people in charge by definitively transferring their responsibility to them. Provide backup. Be the resource people need to deliver their accountability. Use teaching, coaching, infusing means, and running interference. Hold people accountable. Never do anything for your people that they can do themselves. Becoming an investor is let others learn from their mistakes instead of fixing them. Put someone in charge and give them 51% ownership, and conduct the give it back experiment. For the give it back experiment, when someone comes to you with a problem, offer them advice, not solutions, and give the issue back to them. The example in the book was a group in a boardroom. They were having trouble with coming up with new ideas for a new client, and the guy that was ultimately in charge of the entire process kind of came in and didn't take over. His project manager, was kind of lost, and he took over the meeting for just a brief couple minutes, shot a couple new ideas that they were kind of overlooking because they were under pressure, and when you're under pressure, your brain just doesn't work as well. So he gave a couple fresh thoughts and then handed her the pen back, and they went on from there to create something really great for their new company that they were trying to get. And that is it for 4, 5, and 6.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And then to wrap this up, if I can get there. What are we doing here? Stop it. Go away. All right, there's mine. Okay, so I did chapters 7 and 8. So chapter 7 is all about those accidental diminishers that were mentioned in the previous chapters, but they kind of gave names to these traits that we typically think are good when being a leader and how it can be diminishing to people. So those 6 accidental diminishers are the idea guy, the always on person, the rescuer, the pace setter, the rapid responder, and the optimist. So I put a link in here that if you wanted to know more about those diminishers themselves that really kind of go into the more in depth about it than I'm going to talk about, it leads you to another infographic that talks about those 6 actually made by the company that made this book. So that's kind of cool to see. But basically, their names are basically kind of tell you what they are, but just briefly, I'll just kind of tell you about them. So the idea guy is, their intention is obviously to get ideas, to stimulate others, to think of ideas. But the problem with that is that they could overwhelm others by giving those ideas, hence making the ideas that maybe they wanted to give not come out at all. The always on person, their intention is to create an infectious energy that makes people want to lead and makes people excited to do something. But the problem that what happens is that they consume all of the space and other people tune them out because they are so like in your face and trying to create a positive environment that people are just like, you're too much. So the rescuer, their intention is to ensure people are successful and want to protect their reputation with that by rescuing them. But the problem is with that people become too dependent on those people. Hence, you are not being a multiplier and helping others to become a leader themselves. The pace setter wants to set a high standard for quality work or quality, the end goal in there, so that's of quality. And the problem is that other people become spectators of the thing that you are trying to do and just give up quickly because you are constantly going in and rescuing their work. So like, why do I even need to get it done in the first place? I'm talking about the patient rescuers, but they're very similar together. The rapid responder, we all know those people who constantly answer emails right away when you ask them a question. They constantly have an answer, and their goal is to keep the organization moving fast and continuing up with those goals that you want to meet. But the problem is that they move so fast, but the organization the organization itself moves slowly because there are too many decisions or changes that are happening because the rapid responder is constantly giving input that people can't really process what's going on. Finally, the optimist, we all know someone like that also who, is always trying to find the best in things and try to make everybody happy and all that, but that good intent can lead to bad things like people wondering if they appreciate the struggle and the possibility of failure. A lot of greatness comes from failure, but the optimist, if you're constantly giving great feedback, it might not lead to a great end result. So the second takeaway I had from chapter 7 was, like I talked about, great qualities can lead to bad things. So these common good traits that we think are great about us as leaders can actually do more harm than good. So I thought about that a lot while I was reading. I was like, oh, I do that. And maybe it's more not doing as much as I thought it was going to be. And then Beth talked about this in her section about taking the quiz if you are an accidental diminisher. I also took that. I had the same results that Beth did, that I'm like borderline an accidental diminisher. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. So after reading this book, I'm like, I need to tune it down a little bit so to be more of an effective leader that way. I have a link to the quiz on here as well, and the results are kind of surprising. Well, they were in my opinion. But finally, chapter 8 is all about becoming a multiplier school in the end. So they listed 4 important steps that you need to take to becoming a multiplier school. First, you need to get feedback from others. So just about yourself personally, your strengths, your weaknesses, what they think about you as a leader. It's good to reflect on that. You need to establish a singular focus. I know many schools might have the issue where administrators or people who are in leadership positions give all these great ideas that they want to achieve, but there's too many ideas at one time and they're not a singular focus into what you're trying to accomplish. So one focus is the way to go. Create a success cycle. So list those steps that you need to take to get to success and really follow those steps in that cycle order to get there. And then create a multipliers learning network. So reaching out, whether that is, face-to-face on the internet. The internet has great tools for you to create a network of multipliers who share the same passion you do in becoming a better leader. Then the second takeaway I had, so leaders do this. So these are things that they listed that, leaders that they should do to become a more effective leader. So get the message out across the board, get everybody on the same page. They had an example in here about how, if this book was left in your mailbox, how would you feel? And, I kind of went back and forth about that, but I think that would make a clear statement as to what a principal or a person in power is wanting to get across. So I thought that was kind of neat. Create a shared vocabulary. So trying to, again, get everybody on the same page about the same language that they use and their understanding of what is trying to be accomplished. So everyone knows that vocabulary that needs to be meant across and they understand all of it. And then remember, it takes time. This isn't an overnight thing. Obviously, this is if your school, whatever, decide to take this book and do this, it's not like a thing that's going to happen in a couple of months. Everybody's got to be on board. Everybody's got to be willing to learn so that it takes time. Finally, the biggest one that I think everyone needs to remember is that leadership is shifting. So leadership is now being looked at from all positions in school, to quote from the book, to someone who asks, sees, provokes, and unleashes the capability of others. So leaders are not being looked at as people who delegate jobs or delegate things that need to be done, but more or less like asking for people who want to do something or asking for opinions, and helps unleash that, talent. The last section of the book was, are you a genius or a genius maker? And there's a lot more value in being a genius maker than a genius. Being a know-it-all is really great, but if you don't influence anybody else to bring out their own genius, then you might not be doing your job as a leader. So yeah, that's about it. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I'm good.
No, I think we covered it.
So I'll put all this on a document with this video and all through the links to our infographics so you can look at those more in depth. But yeah, I think we're good. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then I will upload all this now, guys, and get that done. So thank you again for working with me with the technical difficulty. So we should be good now. So,
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Okay.